Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided. This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy and other Eagan community television programming is supported by Thomson Reuters, makers of Westlaw Next and based in Eagan. Through Westlaw Next and other innovative online services, Thomson Reuters is the world's leading source of intelligent information for businesses and professionals. Online at thomsonreuters.com. And by U.S. Federal Credit Union, the member-owned financial institution offering service, value, and experience you can trust to the greater Twin Cities community.
And welcome back. Access to Democracy returns, Alan Miller returns, and this is the Rick King chapter. We are fortunate enough to be able to share with Rick once or twice a year any one of the myriad of things he does in addition to being the COO here.
Good to be back with you, Alan.
In Thomson Reuters, and as I've said many times, much responsible for the gorgeous studio that we have here in this operation, and he's been a good friend over the years.
I'm going to keep coming back until you stop saying that.
Well, then I won't stop saying it. So many things happening locally. And I know you're on the Airports Commission, the Metropolitan Airports Commission. I read a lot about what's going on. So let's talk about that first. Before we get to Donald Trump.
That would be a great conversation, Al. Yeah, there's probably, I would say, two big things going on. One had a lot of activity and is decided, and the other one is we're in the middle of the activity. The first one is about some changes around the food concessions. There were a lot of good proposals by many vendors. I think we had 250 different vendor proposals for 50 positions. So we have a brand new group of people moving into the airport.
Inside?
Inside.
Right.
All inside security. Not everything's changing, but some of them are changing, and then others will change in 2017. So we're going to see a lot of new things, a lot of local new things. People can read about that, but probably one of the more interesting things is there will be a venue for live music. That's going to be
that's interesting.
Kind of a good innovation there, and there'll be other local flavored things as well, along with that being local music.
Now I know one of the things I read about was people saying there should be a venue also outside of security, so that people who are coming with their families to say so long and have a good trip, that type of thing. There really isn't anything at this point for that.
So there's something, but people don't really think about it. At the baggage level, which is outside the baggage claim area, which is outside of security, down on that level, there are two places that are open. One is a Starbucks that's open down there, and it's got a great seating area, and it's right next to a little kid playground area. And the other part down there is a little pick and go kind of fresh market area where you can pick up prepared sandwiches or salads and drinks and things like that. So that's not, people forget about those two. We used to have in Terminal 1, those are all in Terminal 1. In Terminal 1, near the checkpoints, before the checkpoints, on the far right-hand side as you face the checkpoints, we used to have a restaurant there before security, and the revenue out of that was not really acceptable to either the person running it or to us. But moreover, we also are enlarging the security checkpoint areas so we can accommodate more passengers going through faster. So that area was taken back, and from time to time we talk about it, but given that that area had low revenue, given that we have the two on the baggage claim floor, I think we might be set for now. So I encourage people to come in when their parties go through security themselves, if they want to wait before they leave, for leaving the airport. Just go down one level where the baggage claim is. There's the Starbucks, there's the little pick and go, and you can grab some food or snack or coffee or tea or cold drink or something like that.
And that's what we call Terminal 1.
Terminal 1.
Which I call the Lindbergh Terminal, but like to hang on to old names.
It's still the Lindbergh Terminal, but Terminal 1 and Terminal 2.
Now let's talk about Humphrey.
Humphrey Terminal 2 I don't think they have a food venue outside of security there, but bright shiny terminal, we just expanded the customs area there. That's a lot smoother, and we've got a lot more operations going out of that terminal. It's looking really good. We'll be doing a 3-gate expansion there also.
A 3-gate expansion, which means a build-on, right?
Right. Yeah, and mostly what we're seeing is a pretty good growth out of a couple airlines there. One is Southwest, and another one is certainly Sun Country is running a fair number of operations out of there. And then the other groups, everybody's trying to pick up the Terminal 2 work, so it's really quite good.
Yeah, when we started using Sun Country, and we still do, to fly to vacation locations, particularly Mexico, they had 8 planes. Today they have 20 planes. So
yeah, and I think they have a plan every year to add some more aircraft, and it's a gradual plan. I think it's a thought-through plan, and they've just got to get through some of the issues that they're dealing with to continue that growth. I think they do a really good job. They have a really good market there. Of course, Spirit moved over to Terminal 1 to make more room for that expansion and took up some space there, so that's good. And Spirit is doing well in Terminal 1.
Spirit is the no-frills airline where you have to stand and hold a strap.
I wouldn't say that, Alan. You could, but I won't. I think that what we're trying to do is have as many of the carriers that operate in the U.S., all the way from what is traditionally called the mainline old carriers to the low-cost carriers, and have people have the choice of the type of service and fares that they want to pay.
And of course, one of the great things that's changed in recent years is the fact that light rail goes into the terminals. I mean, what a boon that is for travel and travelers.
And that I think you're right about that, and it's foresighted to have thought that through. And in fact, light rail is what connects Terminal 2 and Terminal 1 together. So the way that's set up so that people can ride free between the two terminals, and it's integrated totally into that line, is just fantastic. It's really thoughtful, and for people that are might be at the mall visiting or shopping, they can certainly do the light rail to the airport. They can continue on into downtown Minneapolis, and soon they'll be able to connect even more beyond that. So I think that's really good. And Alan, that sort of transitions a little bit into the other topic, which is the other topic that's really germane and is in the middle of being talked about now, is the long-term comprehensive plan. And believe it or not, the one that we're currently working on is titled Long-Term Comprehensive Plan 2035. And right now...
Well, plan ahead. I mean, because you have to for growth, and certainly
that's it.
Changing demographics in the area.
The plan, every 5 years there's a new plan, and it's shared with all the municipalities, shared with the Met Council for their planning purposes, because they have a transportation remit in their charter as well. So we take care of the airport part. They look at other things in the state beyond just the metro airports. But what's interesting about the plan, when you look that far ahead, so that's a 20-year from now plan that we're talking about. And when you look at growth, and people are worried about growth, and I'll tell you what's going to grow. Passenger numbers are going to grow. aircraft operations will probably grow modestly, passenger growth will be higher. That's because airlines are using bigger planes and they're filling them up more. So what people hear when they hear growth is more planes, more noise. That's what gets controversial with
Yeah,
people.
noise is one of the things I wanted to talk about. But,
And certainly I think I understand why people want to talk about that, and what I'm hopeful about is that people will just step back and listen to what the growth is, because passenger growth, filling up the current planes, doesn't necessarily change operations. Our operations annually are way down. They're not even close to 2004 levels. So there's a lot more capacity actually at the airport for that, but the number of passengers is growing faster. So
that's a very interesting figure.
it is. So what we see in our long-term comprehensive plan is a need to do a lot of work on roadways, on the way that you get from your car, park it, the way you get out of your car and walk in through the security areas. We call that the land side of the airport. So the land side is going to be taxed by the number of people that fly. Then the air side is taxed by the number of planes that fly, also in the gates, it's passengers. So once you go through the gate, it's more about the planes and the runways and things like that. And frankly, we're not going to see, I don't think, the levels that we had in 2004, even within the time frame of this plan. But as you know, if you have 1% growth for 20 years, the number in 20 years
There you
is
go,
pretty
yeah.
big. And I think what we see in terms of passengers is probably a 2% or so growth, maybe even 2.5% growth annually. And Delta's, for one example, is talking about 1 to 1.5% operational increases. That would be the type of planes.
Is there room in this airport for that kind of growth?
There is,
in this
actually.
location?
There is, except for one thing. There's banks, meaning airlines call them banks. It's when a bunch of flights leave. And there are certain times, the early morning bank, there's a mid-morning bank, there's a mid-afternoon bank, and an evening bank that are pretty heavy. The morning and evening one are pretty much tapped out. If you want to fly another flight at 7 o'clock, it's probably not going to work. But the airlines can schedule that. It's not up to the airport. It's not up to the airport when the schedules are made. Now, the fact is that if you don't have a gate, it's a problem. So gates get filled at these peak times, but if you take other points during the day, there's plenty of space in the airport to fly other flights.
Well, those early morning times, which are vacation times in my head, and the evening times are really international times where the planes are going overseas. Sometimes you'll pass and look at the runway and you'll have 5, 6, 7 planes lined up ready to take off.
Right, and that's
Which
not
is
unusual.
frustrating
It
for
is a little
people.
bit, it is, and we'd like not to see that, but the schedules are such that people are knitting in schedules of arrival in various points to coordinate with other planes leaving and things like that. So if I could magically spread the flights out among the hours of the day, and I'm not talking about the hours of the night, we have capacity every hour of the day, but I can tell you that there are hours of the day when we have plenty of capacity. And then planes, I think the airlines start to look at upgrading the planes so that there are more seats on the plane, because it's a bigger type of plane, newer plane, quieter engines. That's the technology that comes in with newer planes. So there's more people on the plane, it's flying quieter, it's got better fuel economy and emissions. So
More money for the bottom line.
more money for the bottom line, but also less emissions in the environment, less noise in the environment, so good for residents too.
Now, I read something recently that the FAA shut down one of the runways or repositioned one of the runways. That has to have a big impact.
Well, when it first came out, Alan, what they said is there's a crossing runway operation with when we're doing a northwest flow. There's 2 parallel runways, and then there's one that crosses those runways. The protocol that the FAA used to allow that to happen, they suspended nationwide pending some review. So immediately that took out some capacity for the airport when we were in that configuration. But within a matter of weeks, they were able to add some of that back in. And the actual impact of that is 1% to 2% right now. So it's not really a factor
Well, that should be
anymore.
doable.
So the safety factor is fine. Everybody's adjusted to the capacity issue, and it's not seemingly a problem.
Now, one of the things that we read about and that I have read about in particular, and not necessarily here, although there was one incident, is lasers and drones. Drones seem to be becoming very prevalent. People, for whatever their reasons, are getting a huge kick out of these drones, but they also endanger flights. Lasers, we know, and we have read numerous times, particularly in New York, how they endanger the pilots.
Yes.
So what does one do about that?
Yeah, I think, so let's start with lasers, because at this point, this is somebody pointing a laser up at a plane. There actually, I can't think of a reason why you would do that. I think if we have to talk to people about, don't do that, it blinds the pilot, that's a problem, obviously, and it's those pointers should not be pointed at anybody, anything that you could actually hurt somebody. And I think if anybody sees anybody doing that, we should all do our citizen best to turn them in.
911 right away.
Exactly. So that's there just isn't a valid reason. On the drones, it's an interesting thing because the FAA is studying rules for drones. It's sort of, they should have been out ahead of this, and they're not. They will get a hold of it. MnDOT Aviation has some rules. I could probably tell you the rules because I found out about the rules, but we have stories about people that fly drones near the approach end of the runways, and they can be very dangerous. I mean, these drones can be fairly large. They can be the kind that you see in the military. People aren't going to buy those, but a 55-pound drone is not unusual, and that is probably somewhere in the $5,000 range. There's smaller ones that are $1,000. They're very approachable by kind of average people that really want to do something. People, farmers use them to look at crops. MnDOT uses them to look at bridges. There's so many.
Neither of which are near the airport.
No, but if they were, it's okay because in the right way, because at least with the drone, unlike the laser, you have some valid reasons to want to use it. I mean, there's all kinds of art projects. We used a drone company here to take pictures of the crop art that we have on the approach runway with MIA, the museum
It's gotten a
formerly
lot
known.
of publicity also.
Exactly.
Yes.
And, through that process, if you have a drone, my recommendation is that you go on the MnDOT website and you figure out what you have to do. If it's recreational in nature, you need to register it. You need to let them know what you're doing with it, and you pay a simple fee for that. And you actually get like a plane number, an N number on it, and it's registered, and then people know what you're doing. That's going to be required that when the FAA comes out, no doubt about it. If you're flying them as a commercial
I
enterprise,
mean, that's so logical, right?
I think it's fair, and there's other criteria, but MnDOT is very responsive in talking to people about it. If you're flying one commercially, that is, you're making money, you're a real estate agent, and this is the way you plan to take pictures of the houses that you sell, the commercial registration is a little bit more complicated, and you need to, again, go through MnDOT and learn what the requirements are before you fly. And you never know when you can get in the way of a plane, so be careful. If you're around an airport, there are a lot of considerations for that. If you're out in the country, maybe some less so, but planes are still there flying, so you should be known, you should be registered, and so forth.
And of course, it's up to the legislature then to fix at least state penalties for that. And I guess the feds to make it a federal penalty. And I really think that there should be severe punishments now. Of course, I'm a progressive and we're always accused of wanting bigger government, but this to me is a no-brainer. I mean, I'm one of those people who thinks that guns should be registered, but and we keep picking up the papers every day about another handgun killing, or handguns in the hands of mentally disturbed individuals. So those to me are no-brainer types of registration.
Well, I don't want to comment too much on the guns, so I'll just beg off on that one and this one. But for the drones, absolutely, they're called unmanned aircraft systems. They're flying in the airspace with airplanes. We want to deconflict them with the airplanes, and you can't assume just because you're near an airport that a helicopter or an aircraft isn't flying. So register, learn what you have to do it legally, and you can still do it then, but you just need to think about it ahead of time. And I'm with you on that. I think right now lack of registration is a misdemeanor offense, but if you conflict with flying space, the penalties go up quickly. And I suspect there'll be some, just as you suggest, for an unregistered drone that will increase the penalty. Because if an engine intakes a drone, it will be a problem, and it will be on the approach or departure, which is the most critical phase of flight.
And we've seen what birds can do to an engine when they get ingested or sucked
Basically,
into an engine.
It's a metal bird, basically, to use your analogy there. And maybe you have a chance that the engine blades, which are very thin, could combust a bird itself, but thinking that it will combust, that it will actually chew up and survive chewing up a 55-pound metal drone is probably another thing. I do not think that that's a good event for an engine.
No, I would agree with you there. In a completely new area and vein, in the 5-6 minutes we have left, what's down the road with Thomson Reuters at the moment? I know you're going all over the world, literally, and you've been very active, in particular in establishing a relationship in China as well as Switzerland. So what's in the road there?
There's a lot of, we see a lot of growth in different areas of the world. We're particularly focused in Latin American areas. Brazil is a very big growth area. Argentina, some of the other countries there, we see a lot of growth. We're seeing a lot of activity in China, as we have, and also in Korea. We're looking at a lot of the big companies that we could partner with in some of those countries to actually enter a market or enter a country together around a certain thing. So we'll be looking at partnerships as a way to work through some of these things, which is pretty exciting. The growth has been good, not fantastic across the businesses. Some are higher than others, but it's been good. The thing that recently has hurt us a lot is the currency exchange. The dollar gets stronger. We have a lot of currencies that we collect, and then we report in dollars. So all the globals have reported difficulty with currency exchange, or that kind of thing in the last couple of quarters. That'll probably level itself out eventually, but things are going pretty good that way.
Now, I know TR has had a great relationship in terms of books for Africa. What about developing Westlaw in Africa and Westlaw Next, and what's the future there?
Well, we have some businesses in different parts of Africa that are going. Mostly what's going right now, we have our news media bureaus around, and we have some fledgling businesses in some of the financial markets. Now we have big businesses in South Africa, Johannesburg, and so forth, and Northern Africa. We have some
established countries,
right.
Yes, but
And
there are so many burgeoning countries.
There's a lot going on in Africa, and a lot of it requires the stability of the economies, the governments there, and also sort of literacy and electricity type of things. So a lot of the basics are there, but what we are seeing, Alan, across the board there is that unlike our country or some others that made sort of a transition from doing things by themselves to doing things with the computer to doing things on mobile, these countries are on mobile already, so they're skipping all that other part, and their first foray into a lot of these things is through mobile. So, you know, that changes the dynamics of the kinds of products that you would use in those areas.
But it should be a big growth area for
It's
you.
absolutely a
Yeah.
big growth area. And the rule of law is very important in a lot of those places. So Books for Africa, which Sharon Sells-Belton heads up here at TR, is a very strong program and really helps us get into those countries and share some of the things that have been successful here.
Now, the Books for Africa program involves what kind of books?
Well, there's a set that we set up legal libraries for the governments and the schools there. We do that kind of thing. But there's also a whole host of books that would be for families and kids and adults. So there's the common books as well as the legal books as part of that program.
And everything, including Thomson Reuters, evolves and moves on as the world changes. So must corporate America, or corporate world, I guess, is what really
We have
in
to
your
move
case.
fast. You have to really decide what's going on in the world and where you want to be. Can't be everywhere doing everything all the time, so you've got to pick your places, invest in your growth areas, and be very, very precise about what you're going to do so that you can continue on and live to fight another day. It's very tough competition in the world. There's a lot of good new businesses coming out that would like nothing more than to take your franchise away.
But Westlaw is unique. It was unique 40 years ago, and it still is unique.
Every day, though, Alan, we have a competitor that wants to take the crown away from Westlaw, so we have to fight diligently against them. It's just the nature of business, and that's what we do every day in every one of our markets, and that's what every company does. So the competition, technology has reduced the cost of entry for startups.
And the world has shrunk.
Indeed.
Shrunken
It.
very much, yeah.
It has. It's you have to decide where you're going to go, be prescriptive about what you're going to go there with, and then work really hard to be the best.
So where's the next trip on your schedule?
I think the next thing I'm going to be doing is going back to London. So that'll be, actually, I think it's Switzerland first.
Switzerland, London.
Can't complain.
Rick King, as always, thank you so much.
Alan, good to talk to you again. Thank you.